frontliners. Thank you for joining us today. We have great morning planned for you. Before we get started, I would like to thank all the professional organizations who spent time zooming with us today. And I believe we have participants that join us today from the Philippines, US of A, and other part of the Middle East. Thank you for all your precious time you put into this. To start the program formally, we will ask the guidance of our Almighty God. Mr. James Moro will lead us into Christian prayer, followed by the Muslim prayer to be led by Mr. Darwin Majid, and for our COVID prayer to be delivered by Miss Maricris Pacheco.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of our Lord. Dear God and loving Father, we praise you and adore you. We humbly ask your forgiveness for our sins. Have mercy on us, O Lord. As we gather here today virtually in our webinar meeting, send us your Holy Spirit to be our guide and give us the wisdom to understand every topic that we are going to discuss. Enlighten our minds and let your love be upon us. May this meeting bring success and growth to everyone. We thank you, Father, for this precious time that you have given us. Pray through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever. Amen.
Sir Darwin.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wal barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Warahmanirrahim. Malik yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin.
God our Father, we come to you in our need to ask for protection against the COVID-19 that have disturbed and even claimed lives. We pray that you guide the people tasked to find cures for this disease and to stem its transmission. Protect the medical experts that they may minister to the sick with competence and compassion. We pray for those afflicted. May they be restored to health soon. Protect those who care for them. Grant eternal rest to those who have died. Give us the grace in this trying time to work for the good of all and to help those in need. We implore you to stop the spread of this virus and to save us from our fears. Grant all this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. We fly to your protection, O Holy Mother of God. Do not despise our petition and our necessities, but deliver us always from all dangers, O glorious and blessed Virgin. Amen. Our Lady Health of the Sick, pray for us. Saint Raphael the Archangel, pray for us. Saint Roch, pray for us. Saint Lorenzo Ruiz, pray for us. Saint Pedro Calungsod, pray for us.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Geoffrey, Sir Darwin, and Miss Maricris for the prayer. Now, let us welcome our dynamic PPO President and also the President of Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants here in ERSA. Let's recognize Mr. R.C. Fernando to deliver the opening remarks.
Hello, good morning. Ayan.
Good morning.
Good morning to all. Clear po ba tayo?
Good morning.
Tinitignan ko dito kung paano ko
Wala po kayo, Sir Press RC.
Wala ba ako? Sorry. Hello, hello?
Ayan po.
Okay na? Okay. Good morning to all of you, to all of us. Good afternoon sa Philippines, especially sa ating speaker for today. Welcome to 11th PPO-SA webinar entitled Resiliency During COVID-19 Pandemic, Lesson Learned and the Journey of Filipino Healthcare Frontliners. hosted by PAMET-ERSA. Ayan. So this is a good topic, actually, a relevant topic for all of us. No, it's because about resiliency. It's not only about the frontliners who will bounce back, but all of us should be bounced back from this pandemic. And the problem there is that how we can bounce back after this pandemic, what we learn and what we will prepare or what we will do in the future, just in case this will happen again. All of this we will learn today in this webinar to be given by our expertise all the way from the Philippines. So I will not take much of your time. Let's enjoy, let's learn, and hopefully at the end of this webinar, we will more on positive side already. And hopefully this pandemic will end soon. Again, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you for the opening remarks, Press RC. A gentle reminder to all the attendees to mute all the microphones of your devices, and all questions will be entertained after the resource speaker delivers his presentation. We'll call now the most cheerful and generous PAMET-ERSA President, Ms. Amelita Estrada, to introduce our resource speaker for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boyet Mata, for such an introduction.
Good morning, po.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my dear councils, officers, members, and guests. This is my honor to introduce today's prestigious speaker. He is the current National President of the Philippine Association of Medical Technologists, the PAMET. He is also the current Vice President of Biorisk Association of the Philippines, the BIRAP, for fiscal year of 2020-2022. He earned his baccalaureate degree of BS Medical Technology from the University of Santo Tomas as a full academic state scholar. He acquired his Master in Business Administration, major in Healthcare degree from Ateneo de Manila Graduate School of Business. He spent over 2 decades as Chief Medical Technologist in a private practice in his own clinical laboratory, the ProLab Diagnostics. It is complemented by his meaningful involvement in various government agencies such as the Department of Health and Commission on Higher Education. He is also actively involved in different international organizations such as the ASEAN Association for Clinical Laboratory Sciences and International Federation of Clinical Chemistry, among others. His area of interest includes laboratory management system, quality assurance, clinical chemistry, and clinical microscopy. Besides being our super busy tatay, he is also an endorser of Safeguard.
Yes.
My dear councils, officers, members, and guests, it is with greatest pride to present our speaker for today, Mr. Ronaldo E. Puno.
Good morning. No, thank you very much, Mamilet, no, for that very generous introduction. Good morning and good afternoon for those who are joining us here in the Philippines. So I'm really very glad to be part of this webinar of PPO, and I'd like to greet, of course, your PPO presidents or RC and the rest of the PPO officers and everyone who's joining us today. You know what? Maybe this is one of the very few things na magandang ginawa ng COVID is because we're able to communicate virtually, no, despite the distance. So, but of course, nothing can replace the beauty of a face-to-face interaction. And hopefully, in the very near future, we can do that again. And I might visit you there in in Saudi Arabia if there's an opportunity. So, but anyway, I'll be sharing with you my topic. Let me just share first my screen. All right. So my topic for today is about resiliency. No? Resiliency during COVID-19 pandemic, and what are the lessons learned, and what was the journey of our Filipino healthcare frontliners. When I was asked by Mamilet for a topic, I didn't have a second thought, no, of uh, sharing this kind of topic, because I know this is very relevant and very timely topic, because we are now facing our life's most challenging moments. And I'll be sharing some thoughts from the eyes of medical technologies, but relatable and applicable to everyone, regardless of the profession that we are in. And this will give us also glimpse on what we can do to survive victoriously in these hard and difficult times. All right, the overview of this presentation is to provide insightful and meaningful information on the journey and true-to-life experiences of Filipino healthcare frontliners from the eyes of medical technologies in their fight against COVID-19, particularly in a resource-limited setting like our country, the Philippines. This will also present some local and homegrown strategies on how health professionals cope up and continue coping up with the challenges, and how such dark and difficult situation actually gave light to the profession and brought the healthcare professionals at the center stage of this pandemic. And it will also provide tried and tested mechanisms on how to develop personal resiliency in the middle of a crisis. So President RC earlier mentioned that whatever we can get as important thoughts in this topic may also be useful, no, not only today but maybe in the future. But hopefully this will not come second time in our lifetime. So hopefully this will be the first and the last that will be experiencing this kind of situation. But of course, resiliency doesn't apply only during pandemic. So this is something that we can actually apply even on our day-to-day life. Okay. So the talking points here include what the situation, what's the current situation, the challenges that we've encountered, and then what are the opportunities and learnings, and then of course way forward. And this for me is the most important part of it, because it will give us some information on what we can actually do. What are the strategies? What are the how we can move forward after experiencing this difficult time? Now, let me just define first what resilience is. So, resilience is all about being able to overcome the unexpected, and the goal of resilience is to thrive. No? It is also defined as the capacity to recover from the difficult life event, and it can be also referred as one's ability to bounce back, no, and grow despite life's downturns. Now, being resilient doesn't mean that people don't experience stress. No, I don't think anyone could really excuse himself, no, from experiencing stress, even emotional upheaval and suffering. And some people could actually equate resilience with mental toughness. But demonstrating resilience includes working through the emotional pain and suffering. No, so when we talk of resilience, it is something to do with what what's inside us, okay, that made us cope up, okay, that made us move forward and give us hope, no, for for a better tomorrow. Now, while we define resilience, we need also to understand what resiliency means. So resiliency is actually the ability to overcome all kinds of challenges, no? Trauma, tragedy, personal crisis, even simple life problems, and the power to bounce back to stronger, right, wiser, and more personally powerful. And it is important because that is what we need to do when faced with life's inevitable difficulties. So I'll be sharing with you some important events, unforgettable events that actually tested the resilience of the Filipino people. I'm sure you remember this kind of situation that happened in 2009, and that is the Typhoon Ondoy. Okay? Typhoon Ondoy damaged a big part of Luzon, including the National Capital Region, and actually killed thousands of people. No? So hindi natin malilimutan si Ondoy. Else, in 2013, the Typhoon Yolanda severely damaged part of the Visayas region, particularly the province of Leyte, no, and the city of Tacloban. So the damage is really immeasurable, and in fact, it even prompted, okay, Pope who's that? A Pope who went to, is that Pope John? Pope Benedict? Yeah, I cannot remember exactly, but a Pope actually visited the site of this Typhoon Yolanda, no, in 2014. And then we have the very recent one happened in 2019. It was actually an earthquake, okay, in the southern part of Mindanao. And again, it affected several provinces in that part of our country. And these tragedies represent Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. They serve as reminders how prone we are to different calamities. And in 2020, okay, we literally welcomed 2020 with a blast. Why? Because in January of 2020, okay, I'm sure you know all about it, the Taal volcano eruption. And shortly before the Taal volcano eruption, okay, the star of the year, okay, is with us. And that is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. So these kind of situations will only tell us that resiliency is very important, particularly for Filipinos, because we've been we're always visited by different calamities, typhoons, flood, earthquake, volcano eruption, and a lot more. And of course, this COVID-19 pandemic is not only limited to the Philippines, but it is a global tragedy actually. Now, resiliency is actually built on three important elements. These are the elements of flexibility, adaptability, and learning. And when we talk of adaptability, it is the quality of being able to adjust, no, to new conditions or our capacity to be modified for a new purpose. And as an as an as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic, people learned how to adjust in terms of work setting. In the Philippines, of course, working from home until now, the businesses, okay, change in terms of how services are being delivered. And flexibility is our very good quality of bending easily but without breaking, and our willingness to change, okay, or compromise, because we can't always predict when difficult situation is going to happen. And that's also simply reacting, okay, quickly and calmly to a particular situation. And of course, learning is also a very important element in terms of resiliency, and that is actually the acquisition of knowledge through experiences, okay, study, and or being taught. Now, today we are reminded in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, the Filipino spirit of resilience. And when we think of those tragedies, despite the disastrous and devastating event that it was, we are reminded how each and every one of us can rise even in our darkest hours, and that is Filipino resiliency. Now, just a glimpse on the current situation, okay, globally. So COVID-19, of course, is one of the biggest battles the world has ever fought in 100 years. And millions were infected and hundreds of thousands have died. So in the latest study, there are already almost 40 million, okay, 40 million people globally who are affected by COVID-19. And if you are here today, healthy and alive, and none of your loved ones has been sick or has died, then you consider yourself as blessed. And there is so much to really be grateful about. Still in the world, but this time with the Philippines as part of the top 20, no, parang Miss Universe, no, so parang hindi tayo nagpapaiwan ng Pilipinas. So as of October 12, okay, based on the latest data by the WHO, Philippines now ranks number 18, okay, among the countries with the most number of cases. And in fact, Philippines is also the top. By the way, as of yesterday, we now have 348,698 cases, okay, with more than 6,000 deaths. Okay, so since the onset of the COVID-19, and again in another data shared here, you'll see that the Philippines now ranks number one in the Western Pacific region, and it leads by a wide margin in terms of COVID-19 cases and pandemic casualties. So if you look at this figure, we have more than 334,000, and the next in line is Japan, which is only 88,000, then China. So panalo ang Pilipinas. So talagang hindi tayo nagpapaiwan kahit sa COVID-19. Now, what are the scenarios that are happening around us? First, of course, we're witnessing the loss of life at a massive scale based on the data that I have just presented. Millions of people are affected, millions have died, and the number is continuously increasing. And despite the fact that there is now a slim hope of coming up with a vaccine very soon, then the number is definitely still increasing. And in the Philippines, it's really, really significantly rising. And out of that, of course, we fear for the lives of ourselves and our loved ones because nobody knows. Nobody knows who will be affected. No? Hindi natin sigurado. Kahit tayo ay negative ngayon, we don't know what will happen tomorrow in the absence of a vaccine. So we really have to take the necessary healthcare standards, the protocols, and all those steps in order to prevent us from contracting the disease. But again, no one can really tell. Even people who don't go out of their homes are actually being tested positive with COVID-19. And we're grieving for the life that we knew before. No? So I don't know there in Saudi Arabia, but here in our country, we know that life has changed so much. Okay, this is no longer the life that we used to know. Okay, so definitely, adjustment, and we are definitely feeling helpless and lonely because we do not know. Okay, we do not know when will this situation will end. No, wala tayong assurance, walang kasiguraduhan. And while numbers in other countries are declining, in our country is continuously increasing. And of course, at, at some point, we are more than a little angry
Okay now.
as we see the daily injustices that
Let's try.
COVID-19 seem to illuminate. So dito dati nakita first is how bad the health system in the country is. Dito din natin nakita kung paano ang discrimination. Dito natin nakita na despite this pandemic, massive corruption is still there. No, at the height of the pandemic, you'll see corruption being committed. We've seen hoarding of supplies, overpricing of goods, and a lot more. So those are the daily injustices that our people are actually experiencing. And of course, we can say that this is also part of the scenarios that we've been seeing. It is true that we are not prepared for a pandemic. Nobody is. Now, in 2015, Bill Gates wrote an article about the Ebola outbreak in West Africa that killed more than 10,000 people. And he said that as awful as Ebola pandemic has been, the next one could be much worse. He said that the world is simply not prepared to deal with a disease that infects large number of people very quickly. And he was definitely right. No? But he also mentioned that this could be prevented by building a global warning and response system, systems for recruiting, training, and equipping health workers. Okay? Investment on new tools, and to the effort to prevent the contain and to contain our outbreaks. But maybe the world was too busy and we did not listen very seriously. So hindi tayo nakapaghanda. Another scenario is that healthcare professionals in time of pandemic is worth more than a footballer. In Western countries, football players are given too much attention and compensation far higher than healthcare professionals. But when COVID-19 came, the true value of health professionals were unleashed and the world saw their worth. The health professionals who are not given too much attention suddenly became the modern day heroes who are still fighting the virus until now. And we are not mistaken when we ask for more hospitals and less war. There had been a global clamor to put up more health facilities instead of turning into war. And the advent of COVID-19 saw countries, including the Philippines, rushing to set up health facilities to address the rising demand for healthcare services. And maybe you've heard, no, you've seen in television, you've seen online. No? Ngayon, at the onset of the pandemic, doon pa lang tayo nagmadali, doon tayo madaling mag-put up ng mga facilities, ng mga hospitals, ng mga laboratories who can actually help contain this virus. And when pandemic came, Philippines is only one laboratory who handled the specimens and in fact being brought to Australia for testing. Hospitals were not prepared for such eventuality and the healthcare system was caught by surprise and in fact almost collapsed. Also, in this kind of pandemic, oil is worthless in a society without consumption. In normal situation, oil is a very important resource. Many countries are fighting over it. But what is oil? If the world is not consuming it, what it's worth if no one is needing it? No? The global price of oil went down to a record low, and the global demand was very minimal, and that led us to oil surplus. And of course, this is brought about by the situation where people are required to stay home. And of course, sadly, death does not distinguish race, color, or social status. And as you can see in the statistics, okay, even rich countries, particularly US, no, was not spared of this pandemic. And in fact, they have the most number of casualties in this kind of situation. European countries as well. Okay? So no one is exempted. No? Kahit mayamang country ka, kahit ikaw ay mga mapuputi, mga mistiso, no, walang exempted. The social status, the race. So everybody is actually prone, of course, to this risk. Now, let me share with you, okay, let me share with you some glimpse of the journey of Filipino healthcare frontliners. Although, forgive me if I'll make some reference with the medical technologies, but I'll be talking in general of frontliners, but of course, some specific situations that I'll be mentioning are focused on medical technologies, me being a medical technologist myself. Okay. Before, health professionals and medical technologies were seen silently working, okay, inside the laboratories. Okay, as you can see in these pictures, they're doing their routine work. Okay, whether you're working in the Philippines or you're working abroad, medical technologies are usually silent workers performing their tasks on a day-to-day basis. But with the onset of COVID-19, it actually redefined the world of healthcare workers and medical technologies tremendously, and in fact brought them to situations never seen before. Here in our country, before nobody cares who does PCR, who does the rapid testing, but nowadays everybody knows that is being done inside a laboratory. And these pictures will also show, the current setting in various health facilities. So you'll now see health professionals, healthcare frontliners, okay, in full PPEs, in full battle gear, no, handling specimens related to COVID-19 testing, and of course risking themselves, no, and on the possibility of infection. But one good thing that this pandemic might have brought is that it provided some light on laboratory careers. Okay, um, basically because frontline healthcare frontliners, professional healthcare professionals are not given that much attention and value, particularly if you are working here in the country. But with this kind of situation, uh, our professionals, okay, the value of our professionals were highlighted. Then, as frontliners, what specifically do they perform? Uh, they are involved from the early part of the testing, which is the specimen collection, regardless of the type of test that will be performed. Of course, our healthcare professionals are there, whether they collect nasopharyngeal swab, the oropharyngeal swab, or even blood samples. Of course, they are very much involved in that. And of course, they also exercise their expertise being laboratory scientists in performing those specific tests. Some were also trained to become biosafety officers. Some were tasked to do the risk assessment of the molecular biologists being put up in the country. Some were considered trainer. And there are several other tasks that actually came up in relation to this particular situation. So these are just some snapshots on how our healthcare professionals are deeply involved in the process. So you'll see them collecting blood samples and collecting nasopharyngeal samples for COVID-19 testing. Now, but there is this one picture that actually touched me so much and actually melted my heart. So this is a picture of a medical technologist doing, okay, a post-mortem swabbing. So meaning the patient is already dead, but they still need to swab test, okay, to know if the death is due to COVID-19. So you'll see the sacrifices of our professionals. I'm not singling out medical technologies, but health professionals in general, our physicians, our nurses, no, medical technologies, radiologic technologies, and all other healthcare professionals involved in this fight. But the sad thing is that our health workers are oftentimes alone, abandoned, and forgotten. Even though we are really doing so much in terms of upgrading their condition, their working condition, still there's so much that we need to do. But despite that, our healthcare frontliners never give up. Now, what were the challenges that we've encountered along that journey? So I have identified here the seven most common challenge that were encountered by our health professionals. And again, this is not limited to medical technologies, but to all healthcare workers in general. First is the surge in demand for testing, the high rate of infection among health professionals, the shortage of personnel, low compensation and lack of hazard pay, the lack of PPEs, discrimination, and lack of preparedness. But later on, I'll be focusing more on the lack of preparedness. So in terms of the surge in COVID testing, in the number for COVID-19 testing, at the start of the pandemic, there were only about 300 samples per day being tested, being handled by our frontliners, no, collected by being tested with the doctors and with the nurses and the med techs. But then right now we've already exceeded the 30,000 per day. So based on the latest data from the Department of Health, we now have about 50,000 or more than 50,000 samples being tested per day. So nakita natin yung demand, yung the surge. So therefore, that would mean more workload for our people. Okay. And next one is the high rate of infection among health professionals. So here in this data, this figure wherein there are 3,390 health workers tested positive to COVID-19 was actually a data 2 months ago. I decided to include it so that we can see the progress. And the next slide will tell us na by August, it's already about 5,000, 5,008. And the most recent one, just this week, it already doubled. So we now have 10,178 healthcare workers affected by COVID-19. So if you look at the table, you'll see the breakdown of that number. So we have the nurses there, the physician, a nursing assistant, the med techs. We have already 475 med techs who are affected. Although it looks like it's not really very, the data is not really very accurate because based on our own monitoring, there are also already few medtechs who died, but here it's not reflected here. And the rest of the healthcare team, the professionals, the frontliners, your midwife, or rad techs, pharmacies, respiratory therapies, and so on. So kita natin kung gaano ang patuloy na pagtaas ng number. So patuloy na tumataas, and not only for the people but even for our healthcare workers. Of course, there is a negative implication if this trend continues. Definitely kukulangin tayo ng mga health professionals, di ba? And in fact, nagkaroon na nga ng temporary ban from the government to keep them from leaving. And the worst of it, for 2020, for example, for medical technologies, canceled ang board exam. Imagine that we are producing about 7 to 8,000 new medical technologies per year. And therefore, hindi sila makasama sa workforce dahil hindi pa sila allowed. And the doctors, just very recently, dun lang sila pinayagan to continue the second part of their board exam. They've already finished it immediately before the imposition of the lockdown in March. Then they have to wait until last month to complete the second part. And sila lang ang pinayagan ng PRC to continue, okay, so that they could be a good addition to the healthcare workforce. But looking at this figure is really, really alarming. Other challenges about the shortage of personnel, well, this has been present even before the pandemic. Migration, people are migrating for economic reason. Some of our frontliners are shifting to different kind of work, and some are afraid to work due to high rate of infection. Of course, the fear of being infected, and of course, the top reason could be the low compensation. Yan. So yung next challenge is about the low compensation and about hazard pay. That simple hazard pay ay kailangan pang ipaglaban ng ating mga frontliner is not automatic. It has to be included in a new law. So napaka lungkot isipin that these people who are actually sacrificing so much are not being protected. And of course, the lack of personal protective equipment, particularly during the early part of the pandemic. And even WHO has warned that severe and mounting disruption on the global supply of PPE is caused by the rising demand, panic buying, hoarding and misuse is putting the lives at risk from the new coronavirus and other infectious diseases. And they further mentioned that shortages are leaving frontline workers dangerously ill-equipped to care for our COVID-19 patients due to limited access to supplies. And of course, without secure supply chains, the risk to healthcare workers around the world is definitely real. Another challenge is on discrimination, and medical frontliners are literally putting themselves in harm's way to protect the greater Filipino population against COVID-19. And yet, in an alarming twist, an increasing number of them, instead of being accorded the hero's treatment that they deserve, are being subjected to discrimination, harassment, and violence, mainly due to unfounded COVID-19 fears. So what are some of the real-life experiences that we've encountered along the way? And this is a combination of experiences, again, by different health professionals. Some were not considered as frontliners, no, sila mismo pinagdadamutan ng mga kailangan nila, no, in the in the hospitals. Some were mob gang up and threw bleach all over their face, no. There are actual situations na binubuhusan sila ng mga bleach, no, along the way. It happened in Mindanao and one in Cebu. Some public vehicles even declined to let the medtechs and other healthcare professionals board. Some were barred from entering the residences. Some were evicted from eateries. Some were badmouthed or insulted. And some were not given access at checkpoints. So you can see how injustice, no, is being what's the injustice being experienced by our frontliners. So that's why from our end we have to take steps. We have to get to do some advocacy measures to let people know, to let public know that our frontliners are the ones who are protecting them, no, sila yung kakampi natin, hindi sila yung kaaway. Okay, so ganyan ang ating situation. Now, in terms of preparedness, I'd like to focus more on this because here in this April 21 article, it says that many hospitals were not qualified to test for coronavirus. And the national government didn't immediately see the need to accredit qualified laboratories to test COVID-19 samples, even right after the first case was reported. And it was considered a failure to think ahead. And specific situations would include uh, the number of molecular laboratories to do the PCR testing. And you mentioned earlier that at the start we had only one, but it's good to share with you that we now have close to 200 molecular laboratories that are now doing testing. Of course, there's a limited knowledge and skills in molecular techniques, the awareness on the biosafety and biosecurity concern, and of course, very important is the competence in proper handling, management, and procedure. And with that, you'll see that despite the numerous challenges, discrimination, okay, high risk of being infected, and low compensation, they remain committed and they remain resilient. Now, after I have presented to you the real life situation, then we'll now go back to the focus of our discussion, which is about resiliency. No? Nakita natin how stressful, no? Kung gaano ka-stressful ang buhay natin, no? While we are focusing here on our frontliners. But these are real life situations that everybody could actually relate. No? Even your loved ones here in the country. Kitang-kita natin, no? Yung hirap ng sitwasyon, no? This is something na kailangan nating mapaglabanan at kailangan nating mapagtagumpayan. All right, so before I proceed further, I have here one exercise, a very simple exercise that wherein I invite everyone to join, no, para medyo maging interactive tayo ng konti, para hindi naman kayo mainip or antukin. And this is about a resiliency test. Okay? Madali lang ito, but this is something very interesting. So, I would like to invite you to go to this link. I'm sorry. To go to this link. Okay? Okay. And when you go to that link, you can use your cell phone, computer, laptops, or tablet, or whatever you have. And when you enter to that link, okay, dadalhin kayo dito sa resiliency test. Okay? And it says there, sige, while waiting for you to log in, so this is a good exercise. This is very helpful actually, this is a personal exercise na pwede nyo ring ma-share later on, although nasa internet naman to. And this resiliency test says that, well, according to Steve Maraboli, life doesn't get easier, no, or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. The question is, how well do we cope? Okay, are you resilient, or do you bounce back from life's trials, okay, and tribulations, or do they throw you for a serious look? And resilience is the quality that allows us to survive and even gain strength from hardship. So I'd like to invite you now to take this very short exercise, a resilience test. But for
Sir
a
Ronnie,
more
excuse me.
yes, sir.
Can you please share this link in the chat box so they can easily
Oh, okay, sure. I'll
thank
do that.
you.
Okay, I'll do that.
Someone already entered there, Sir Mata already.
I have to go back.
Na-share na po natin sa chat box natin yung link.
Ay, sir,
Meron na.
nandun na pala, nandun na. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
okay.
Sir Mata.
Yeah, so you can go to that link, and then there are actually 10 very short questions that you need to answer. But for the purpose of interactive discussion, I would like to invite any volunteer who would like to answer this right here online. Mr. Mata, would you like to volunteer? So while they are doing their own tests, you might want to do your own here.
Sige po,
Yeah,
for
sure.
everyone.
This is something really interesting, no? So I hope naka-enter na yung iba. But anyway, iba-iba naman of course ang sagot natin. Even if I flash the questions here, the answers will be very much different. And maganda dito kasi meron siyang rating, no, that will measure the degree of resiliency. Okay. Sorry. I have to, ako pala yung magdapat pumasok doon. Okay, let me just enter the link first. Alright. So, ganito po dapat yung makita nyo, no, pagka kinlik nyo yung pagpasok nyo doon sa link. And then you click agree. Okay. And then take the test. Alright. So, sige. I'll read the question, and Mr. Mata will give his answer, and let's see how it
Okay.
goes. Okay. The first question here is, I often like a victim with little or no control over what happens to me. Okay. Is that completely true, mostly true, somewhat true, mostly false, or completely false? What's your answer?
Um, sana.
Ano sagot mo, sir?
Sir Ronnie, you can share po yung screen nyo mismo, yung may questions niya.
Ito na po yung question. Ito na po siya mismo. Kinapi ko lang po
okay.
siya yung, kinapi ko lang
Okay,
din po
okay.
siya. Pero it's the
Okay.
same question po. Yeah. Sir, you have your answer? Yung iba pwede rin naman makapag-answer here, pero hindi nga lang makukuha yung grade kung hindi nyo i-click.
Sige po.
Yes, sir. Which is your choice?
Okay. Yung question po, yung number 1.
Yeah.
I often feel like a victim with little or no control over what happens to me.
Yes.
So mga choices po natin dito, completely true, mostly true, somewhat true or false, mostly false, completely false.
Yan.
So, pwede ko ba ito i-share sa ang screen ko para makita ng sige po.
When they open, sir, their link naman, yan din lalabas eh. So, do you have an answer, sir, here? Parang example lang, ikaw yung model. Ano sagot mo rito?
Sige po.
Just an exercise.
Okay. So I often feel like a victim with little or no control over what happens to me.
Okay. And what's your, is it?
So okay, my answer is okay, somewhat true or false.
All right, sige. Okay, so let's click that. Question
Yeah.
number 2.
So
Okay.
number 2, what doesn't kill us make us stronger? Yan. So, dito lang po ako sa somewhat agree and disagree.
Okay.
Parang safe.
Okay.
Okay.
Sige, sir.
So number 3, we can overcome painful childhood memories and lessen their influence on our behavior and emotion. Okay. Okay. Ganun po tayo. Agree po tayo.
Okay, agree.
And then next.
Next, medyo mahaba yung question, pero something nakakatuwa.
Number 4, you hear through the grapevine that one of your friends is hosting a huge birthday bash on the weekend. You rush out and buy a great gift, but the invitation never comes. You find yourself at home or alone watching reruns on Saturday night. The next Monday, everyone is talking about the great party. What's your reaction? So, ang dami pong choices dito. Okay. So, babasahin ko po lahat.
Sige.
Okay. I felt terribly hurt but never admit it to anyone. It bothers me for days. And number 2, I am annoyed and demand to know why my friend didn't invite me. So number 3, I am angry and no longer consider her a friend. 4, I assume it was just a mix-up and forget about it. 5, I feel a little hurt and approached my friend and nicely asked why I wasn't invited. 6, I feel hurt, but time will heal the wounds. So, number 6 yung aking
number 6. Okay. I feel hurt. But, okay. So
number 5.
Number 5.
You've been working your butt off at work and your boss has finally taken notice. You're sure a promotion is coming any day. When you arrive at the office on a Monday morning, however, you find out that your coworker got the promotion. So you're stuck on the same old grind. How do you react? Okay, ito yung answer. I get angry and confront my boss aggressively. It's not fair. Number 2, I get angry but don't say anything to my boss. It eats away at me for a few weeks. So number 3, I feel frustrated and decide not to get my hopes up anymore since things never work out. Number 4, I'm very disappointed but feel too uncomfortable to ask my boss about it. 5, I'm disappointed but think there must be a reason. I talk to my boss and ask what I need to accomplish in order to advance. So, ito po yung answer natin. Medyo
okay.
So, next. Number 6. Medyo marami-rami pa ito, sir.
10 lang yan, sir.
Okay. So, number 6 question. When you think about the most difficult times you have faced in the past, what is your first thought? So, answer. Number 1, I'm so angry. Number 2, I can think about it without getting physically ill. 3, thanks God that's behind me. 4, I wouldn't necessarily want to live it again, but I learned it a lot from it. So 5, it's some kind of miracle. I survived it. I couldn't do it again. 6, why do these things happen to me? Life is so unfair. So, punta na ako dito. Answer ko po is number 3.
Okay.
Okay. 7, medyo how would you describe the evolution of your self-esteem over the years? Ayun, evolution of self-esteem daw natin. Number 1, it has increased with time and is at the highest it has ever been. 2, it's getting worse and worse. 3, I've experienced ups and downs, but generally I like myself. 4, I don't like myself very much and never have. Okay, so number 3 po tayo.
Number 3, okay.
So 8, how
Okay,
strong overall do you feel you are emotionally? Answer 1, strong as an ox. I can survive anything. 2, I'm usually strong, but I have moments of vulnerability. 3, strong in some ways, vulnerable in others. 4, I'm somewhat strong, but I lean more towards vulnerable. 5, I'm very vulnerable. And 6, to be truthful, I can stand on my own 2 feet. Okay, so number 2, answer.
Okay,
Okay.
number 2.
So 9.
Last 2.
Last 2. Okay. You are at work or school a bit early one morning, and on the way to your office or class, you overhear 2 co-workers or classmates that you don't know very well discussing your character flaws. What do you do? Okay, answer 1, I leave it alone. I don't really care what they think. 2, I leave it alone. I accept that I cannot possibly please everybody. 3, I confront them and tell them that I don't appreciate their behavior. 4, I go in the bathroom and let some steam out by crying or screaming or hitting the wall. Wow, meron pa dito. But never say anything to them. 5, I complain to my supervisor or principal that they are spreading rumors about me. 6, I go home and call and seek for the rest of the week. 7 na ba tayo? Tama ba? 1, 4,
Yes,
6.
yes.
I get my revenge by spreading nasty rumors about them. And last, I quit school or my job. So I think my answer will be number 3. Okay, so last, number 10.
Okay.
How long does this event linger in your mind? Okay. Number 1, answer, maximum 5 minutes. Number 2, less than an hour. Number 3, no more than half the day. Number 4, all day. 5, a couple days. 6, most of the week. 7, all week. And 8, over a week. Okay, so I think number 2.
Number
Ayan.
2. Okay.
So,
So
punta
let's see your
tayo.
score.
So score my test. Okay. Okay, let's check. Okay.
73.
73. Aba, hindi ako pasado. 73.
Your score indicates that you're fairly resilient and you're generally able to bounce back easily from a variety of trying situations and get on with your life. So essentially, you possess most of the characters of a survivor, such as flexibility, self-confidence, optimism, and the feeling of control over what happens in your life. You do you do your best to avoid taking things personally and are able to put troubles in perspective, which helps prevent you from sinking into despair when the going gets rough. Not bad. No? So
Salamat po.
so I hope others were able to find out their level of resiliency. Okay, so let's now go back to our slides. Ay, paano ba ako babalik? Hindi na ako makabalik sa aking slide. Do I have to stop this? Okay. All right. So moving forward, I'll be now share. These are the same questions, no? Ikinapi ko lang. So these are some of the practical ways to enhance resiliency and well-being in these trying times. And just in case you did not score well in your exercise, then this might help. So let me share with you what are those. All right. First is sorry, back tayo. Ay, nangyari. Okay. First is we need to cultivate a belief in your ability to cope. Always remember that when we're going through the hard times like what we are in right now, we are easily get overwhelmed. Di po ba? So natural yun no? Pagka mayroong masamang nangyayari, parang sobrang affected tayo. Sometimes we feel helpless and we start to wonder how on earth we're going to get by. So namumroblema na tayo, no? Paano ba natin ito malalagpasan? Kailan ba ito matatapos? Ano ba mangyayari sa akin bukas? So something like that. And it's important to validate these concerns. So you could put your hand on your chest and tell yourself that I'm okay. Okay? I'm okay, and you feel whatever emotions. You need to bakit nagagan? Okay. You need to recognize that particular emotions, and just in case you're having hard time coping up, and you're having difficulty in cultivating the belief na kaya mo to, na malalagpasan natin to, and then therefore you need to consider, okay, the situations wherein you've encountered such difficult time before, and it might be useful to step back and think about other hardships that you have been through, and then you try to determine no ba paano mo siya nalagpasan, di ba? And of course, take also a moment to list the capacities that can bring you to bear in this kind of situation. So you should focus on those things that are not dependent on other people, like your adaptability, your intelligence, your sense of humor, courage, okay, perseverance, resourcefulness, assertiveness, and gratitude. So unang-una, kailangan nating maniwala na malalagpasan natin yung ganitong sitwasyon. Next is, okay, we need to stay connected with sources of support. Having somebody with us, no, it actually gives us more strength, di ba? Kung nasa family tayo, if we have our support system, that gives us more strength, no, more hope. And we are considered what we call the social animals, no? We need a tribe. So kailangan natin ng kasama because it makes us feel, and it makes us feel safe, makes us feel supported. So now, if you don't have a lot of people in your life right now, then you might want to look around. No, your sources of support do not always have to be limited to intimate or individualized relationship. So there are many other new little groups, okay, now forming online using phone and video technology. Even church, no, and meditation centers are being live streamed, no, the activities. So you can always use that as your source of support. And this is not the time to say you don't have time to be in touch with friends, with loved ones, and other supportive people in your life. Next is, sorry ba tayo mag-forward? Okay. The third one is we need to talk about what you're going through. Diba? So mahirap ipunin, mahirap sarilinin lang natin, no, yung ating na-experience, yung difficulty na nararamdaman natin. And you don't have to talk a lot or often, but I promise you that it does not work, okay, in the long run if you keep things with ourselves. If you bottle things up and say, sige, later ko na lang siya, later ko na lang, I'll deal with it later, no? So hindi po pwede kasi maiipon yan eh. So magbi-build up, and we need to work on processing that we're going through at least somewhat in real time. So kailangan nating i-address, no? Kailangan nating may makausap. Okay, somebody who will listen to us, and somebody who will cheer us up no? So importante 'yan na in times of difficulties meron tayong pwedeng puntahan, pwedeng makausap, no, whether it's a family, is a friend, or whoever that is close to you. Next one is being helpful to others. While the situation is difficult and many would say, ako din naman nahihirapan, di ba? Ako din, pareho lang tayo ng dinaranas. But we've seen the outpour of good Samaritans, the outpour of good-hearted people in this kind of situation. And it can be very rewarding and empowering, no, to help other people during hard times. Minsan kahit sa maliit na bagay, no, it's a big boost, no, in our system wherein we're able to help, we're able to give something, no. So napakahalaga niyan at when we see that we can make a difference and we reduce actually someone else's pain, bumabalik sa atin eh, it bounces back to us na you, even no matter how difficult the situation is, parang 'di ba, you feel a bit lighter na parang nung nakatulong ka, ikaw pala may capacity pa tumulong and yet ikaw ayaw mong tulungan yung sarili mo. 'Di ba? Parang gano'n. So, and we're happy that in this kind of pandemic, we've really seen people from all walks of life um, uh, helping people, no, helping other people, so that that could be a source of also a therapy maybe. And with our association, for example, no, well, we have limited resources in our association, but we've tried our best to at least comfort the frontliners. We visited several hospitals, not only in Metro Manila, but even in the different provinces. We've covered over 400 institutions. We gave them some PPEs, some health and hygiene kits, kung ano lang yung kaya. No, so ganyan naman ang pagtulong, hindi naman kailangang malakihan. Kung kaya ng malaki, why not? But then if you can help in some little ways, that will be very very much appreciated as well. Number 5 is we need to activate positive emotion. So it is so easy to get overwhelmed with the challenges, no, the world is facing right now, but hindi tayo pwedeng manatili doon, no? We need to do something. We need to be optimist. Okay? We need to set our minds that something good is coming up. No, na hindi ito forever na ganito ang situation. And we're really hoping that with that positive emotion that we are cultivating in ourselves, unti-unti ay malalagpasan natin, no? So although ayaw na rin naririnig ngayon yung word na positive, no? Baka positive COVID-19. So, but of course, in terms of emotion, we always need to be positive. And then the sixth one is we need to cultivate, okay? We need to cultivate an attitude of survivorship, because the more we focus on being survivors, the most we will activate our inner strength and we create a narrative that we can proudly carry into life after the pandemic. No? Malalagpasan, kaya natin, no? Hindi tayo mananatili diyan. And the last one is we need to seek meaning, okay? So whatever your belief systems are or aren't, you can still find a sense of meaning in all the hardships that we are enduring now. Now, at the end of the day, meron pa rin tayong makikitang maganda. We will still find some good things, no, as a result of this situation. So those are the 7 tested coping up mechanism in order to really build up our resiliency among ourselves, among the people around us, no, among our co-workers. So importante yan na ma-exercise natin yung those different mechanisms, no, to really move on and move forward para whatever this situation brings ay kayang-kaya nating malagpasan. And now, I'd like now to go to the lessons of life, no, and the resiliency amidst this COVID-19. So, I'd like to share you the words of Jack Ma, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the founder of Alibaba Group. And he said that for people in business, 2020 is really just a year for staying alive. no? Yung mabuhay ka lang daw o kalagpasan 2020, swerte mo na. Okay? Don't even talk about your dreams or plans. Just make sure you stay alive. And if you can stay alive, then you would have made a profit already. No? So, ang gandang i-ponder now. Now, specifically, after the pandemic or even before the pandemic ends, things will never be the same again. And when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person that walk in. Diba? Definitely may pagbabago, may mababago sa atin. That's what the storm is all about. Sometimes you have to accept the fact that certain things will never go back, okay, to how they used to be. And we are going towards what we call the new normal or the better normal, whatever you call it. We've been used to working from home for the last few months, conducting online classes, virtual meetings, online shopping, food or online food orders, and even banking. Lahat online, no? Lahat na bago. Okay, it took a pandemic para baguhin, no, ang lahat ng to. And definitely, this will not go back, okay, to the way we used to be. Here in the Philippines, when you ride a bus, when you ride a jeepney, no, para kayong magkakaaway, the train, the MRT. So everything is so different. Dati pagpunta ka sumakay ka ng MRT, nagdidikit-dikit ang mukha niyo, halos magkapalit ang mukha mo. Ngayon hindi na po pwede 'yon, di ba? So jeep, bus, no, taxi, lahat na bago. So things will never be the same again. That's one of the lessons that we've learned. Second is that we learned how to live without malls, gyms, fast food, work, and other worldly things. These are what they consider as non-essentials. So we've seen, no, kung ano lang talaga ang mahalaga. Okay? We've seen what are the essentials in this life. So we learned that only the essentials really matter. At first, it was somehow stressful, not thinking how life could be without those things that we are accustomed to. But 10 months of pandemic, we learned to embrace the reality that when all things are considered, we only need the most basic and considered essentials to survive. So that's another learning that we need to know. We now know how the value of washing our hands and pay attention to our health again. No? So a very, very simple health health uh, protocol, okay? Pero madalas natin yang kinakalimutan. Madalas nating hindi ginagawa. For the longest time, we have been advocating the value of hand washing, but people don't really take it, okay, at its face value. Okay? They are not so serious on giving much attention to this simple health practice. Now we understand that simple hand washing could save us and even our loved ones, because hand washing is the single most effective way to break the chain of infection. So yung pong mga nasa health profession, alam na alam natin yan, no, na napakasimple pero napakalaki ng impact. And in fact, yan ang pinaka most effective, no? Pinaka most effective practice na ini-impose sa atin ng even the global organizations are telling us. Now,
Excuse me po, no?
yes, sir.
Open po yung cam mo kasi nga kanina pa pala hindi naka-open yung
Ay,
cam.
oo nga, sorry.
So, hindi na
I'm
notice.
sorry for that.
And then we have 30 minutes
sige.
more for our hanggang yung presentation po natin.
Okay, so yeah, so another learning is that we now know how to appreciate what we have. The food that we have, the home, the family, because not everyone have it. So in the midst of the pandemic, everyone struggles. And lucky are those with more in life. But how about the underprivileged? The hunger, poverty, homelessness. So they were so much highlighted, no, in this time of crisis. We knew how to be selfless, okay, helping others even if it means risking our lives, no, so helping people. And we learned how to appreciate the sacrifices of others who aid and save strangers, so particularly our frontliners. And one of the good things that came out of this pandemic is, again, the emergence of kind-hearted people na hindi natin inakala na si pala ay magiging source of inspiration, no, to all of us. We learn to be united because for the first time after 100 years, the whole human race is fighting as one. Diba? Iisa lang ang kalaban natin ngayon. And leaders took charge of their nations and took care of its people. And the people followed and prayed for their leaders, okay? Leader success. We learned to value our life because we saw from thousands of people dying that life is very fragile. So we learned to spend our remaining time doing what truly matters. And above all, we learned that we are just humans, okay? Who need someone bigger than us, and we need God, of course. No? Hindi tayo makakasurvive without Him. And for a long time, we knew we had to change, but it took a pandemic, a COVID-19 pandemic, to force us to change. And perhaps we can take some comfort from this global grief. Sabi, no, one of the some of the things that brought about by this pandemic is that we now have a cleaner air, the sky is bluer, families get closer, and most importantly, we are all now learning, okay, how to work from home, how to communicate digitally, and how to work together from a distance. So for the final thoughts, first, have you realized the value of being resilient? Are we prepared for what the future may actually bring? And have we learned from the harsh lessons of COVID-19? So just before I end, I would like to share with you a 4-minute video summarizing the life of a frontliner in the country.
Ang Pilipinas na ang may pinakamataas na kaso ng COVID-19 sa Southeast Asia. Mabilis ang pagtaas ng bilang kung kaya't mas maaksyon ang eksena sa mga ospital. Bukod sa mga doktor at nurse na nangangalaga sa mga pasyente, mabigat din ang pakikipagbaka ng mga medical technologist, ang ating mga bayani sa loob ng laboratorio.
Mga medics natin, ang siya din naging sa amin ng mga iba't ibang body fluids na nagagaling po sa katawan ng tao, mga pas-ihi, mga patuloy, krema, siyempre po ang dugo, no? At saka yan nga po mga swab specimen para po sa pag-examine ng COVID-19. Sila po ang may pinakamalaking risk pagdating po sa exposure, hindi lang naman ang pagharap sa mga pasyenteng posibleng may virus, kung hindi ang mga medtechs mismo, kami mismo mga medtech, ang humaharap sa virus. No? So, face-to-face po yan, kung tutusin, virus versus medtech.
Bukod sa mabigat na pressure sa trabaho, dagdag pa sa hirap ng mga health workers ang nararanasang diskriminasyon mula sa mga taong kanilang pinaglilingkuran.
Marami sa ating mga health professionals, sasama ng mga medtech, ay pinagdidirihan na ibang tao. Marami po sa kanila ay ayaw patuloyin sa kanilang tinutuluyang mga apartment or subdivision. At meron din po na hindi pinapayagang pumasok sa iba't ibang establishment. Ang mga frontliners po, kasama na po ang mga medical technologies, ay siya po natin kakampi. Ang ating pong kaaway dito ay ang COVID-19 virus.
Buwis buhay man ang napiling propesyon, walang pinagsisisihan si Philippine Association of Medical Technologists o PAMET President Ronnie sa kanyang trabaho.
Naniniwala ako na isa ito sa mabisa at magandang paraan upang makatulong sa ating mga kababayan at upang magamit din natin ang ating mga kaalaman tungkol sa siyensya. Kaya with or without COVID-19, I will be forever medical technologist.
Para kay Ronnie, ang pagsubok na ito sa buong mundo ay nagbigay rin ng pagkakataon upang ating mapagnilayan ang mga bagay na tunay na mahalaga sa buhay.
Na-realize natin na life is so short. Napakaigli talaga ng buhay. Sa isang iglap ay pwedeng mawala ang lahat. At siguro, mahalaga rin na ma-realize natin na ang lahat ng meron man tayo sa mundo ay nabibilang sa Diyos. At the end of the day, masasabi natin na only the essentials matter most. Unang-una is our faith. Hindi dapat mawala ang ating paniniwala at pananalig sa Diyos. Pangalawa, na masasabi kong essential ay ang ating pamilya at mga kaibigan. At syempre, realization din na hindi tayo dapat magpabaya sa ating kalusugan at sa ating kaligtasan. So, let's all fight this COVID-19 together. Mananagpasan natin. So, in closing, I would like to mention that the life will really be very difficult. But remember that difficult doesn't mean impossible. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I hope I have shared with you some important learnings, okay, for you to ponder upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Puno. Ayan. So, salamat po sa very informative presentation and giving us hints and practical plans to be ready in case this kind of situation will hit us again. Sana hindi mangyari ulit. And what we are going to do after the pandemic.
Hindi na.
We learn a lot to be more prepared from your talk, a rise in awareness that we may share to our community. So nasabi din po natin na ang resiliency, magiging adaptable po tayo, flexible. Siyempre marami po tayo dahil sa pandemic, marami tayo po matutunan sa mga webinar na inaatinan po natin. So, let us call now the PAMET-ERSA Secretary, Ms. Gayet Magana, to moderate the question and answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. So once again, good afternoon, Philippines. Good morning, Saudi Arabia. And hello to our fellow kababayans across the globe. We would like to acknowledge also the presence of our past president, Dean Shirley Cruzada, straight from Las Vegas. Okay, so thank you, Sir Puno, for an excellent, informative, timely topic presentation that you have shared with us. We have learned how to withstand and recover or bounce back from the pandemic that we are facing right now, and also see the journey of our healthcare workers. So guys, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, so please make sure to type all of your questions into our chat box. Okay, so we have one question, Sir Ronnie, from Ms. Millet. What is your recommendation or tips in talking with children and helping children cope with changes resulting from COVID-19?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, really. So I've encountered that question already before, and I've actually asked also a child psychologist on how children should be treated in this kind of situation. So in this kind of situation, hindi natin po pwedeng ikaila sa mga bata yung nangyayari. So hindi natin po pwedeng itago, no, yung the difficulty of life. So in handling the concerns on children, it's better to tell them in a manner that they will understand the real situation and how it will affect them if they, for example, do not obey in some of the health protocols that are being imposed. Because children will ask, bakit kailangang may mask? Bakit kailangang may face shield? Bakit kailangang nasa bahay? No, so these are the things na hindi natin po pwedeng i-take for granted. No, because children are, of course, they are curious. Bakit nangyayari to? This is the usual thing. Ba't ako nasa bahay? Ba't ako dito nag-aaral? No, so it's a matter of really explaining to them and giving them the overview of the situation. Of course, hindi naman sa mabigat na paraan kasi hindi naman nila makukuha yon. But matatalino ang mga bata. So if you tell them the reality of life in a manner that they will understand, I'm sure they will also cooperate, no, in terms of the value of really following those protocols that are being imposed on them. Kasi tayo man, di ba, pagka merong pinagagawa sa atin na hindi natin naiintindihan, parang we are adamant of following. But the moment that we understand the reason why these are being done, mas madali nating nakukonvince yung sarili natin na, hey, it's okay, para sa akin pala ito. So ganun din naman ang treatment sa mga bata.
Okay, so I hope Sir Puno answered your question, Ma'am Milet. So we have another question coming from Ms. Ange Lopez. Based on your personal experiences and opinions, how are you able to bounce back? And what can you advise not only to our frontliners, medical technologists, but also in general?
I like that question because I've been through the difficulties related to a pandemic personally in my work and even in the association. At the start of the pandemic, I was really wondering, ano nga ba mangyayari? No, what will happen next? Everything is uncertain. But then later on, when I realized that when I gathered my thoughts, I found out now meron pala tayong pwede pang magawa. Just like I've mentioned earlier na extend your help, no? Extend yourself in helping others. You find a way on how you can actually extend help. There's always a way, no? Meron laging paraan. So from then on, yon, we came up with an idea of why don't we go to the different hospitals? Why don't we offer them some help, some assistance? So it consumed actually 3 months of my time, no, during the pandemic, and somehow nakalimutan ko na may pandemic pala. No, people were actually asking me, no, hindi ka ba natatakot, hindi ka ba nagwo-worry? Ako kasi ang aking motto in life, sabi ko, even before, even without the pandemic, for as long as you are doing something good and something noble and something for other people, God will always protect you. And uh, good enough, no? True enough. I've survived for the last 10 months. So, hindi ko sinabing ito sa perfect journey. Maraming problema talaga, no? Hindi nga lang sa association, but even yun nga in personal life, in my work, no, because I have my laboratory. So I didn't know how will the laboratory survive pag nag-open ba kami after a while, babalik ba kami sa normal. And hindi yun na nangyari. But then what we need to do is think of other ways to innovate ourselves, reinvent ourselves. No, paano ba natin maipagpapatuloy yung dati nating ginagawa sa ibang paraan. So in some other ways, no, ganun din naman, just like for example in school, you cannot stop school, no, nang ganun lang na po pwede mong forever mo siyang itigil at hintayin tumigil ang pandemic or dumating ang vaccine. We need to do something. So that's kaya we're doing now like virtual classes. So ayun, I even offered myself to teach, no, that I was not teaching before, I mean for the past several years, but then I said ito siguro pwedeng isang paraan, no, para makahanap ako ng another venue to really be able to be productive and to be able to share, no, knowledge and whatever I can give to other people. Yun siguro ang pinakamahalaga.
So thank you, Sir Ronnie. So is there any questions? May mga tanong pa po ba? So we have another question here coming from Nolito Aranques. So sir, this one. Recently, my nephew was a victim of false COVID test report which showed positive, but when retested with St. Luke's was showing negative. What is the proper remedy on this account?
A positive and then negative, yeah, you mean?
Yes.
It's two different results, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
before we can even give like what do you call this, a comment or a comment regarding that, uh, we need to find out the details na behind those tests. First is we need to know gaano ba ang difference no ng gaano ba katagal ang difference ng dalawang magkaibang test. We should always take into consideration that the difference in timing would matter in terms of the results that you will get. Depende yan, no? You, let's say, negative dun sa, nag-positive muna siya ngayon. But then again, yun nga, hindi kasi na-mention ano ba yung pagitan. Did it
Hello, sir.
happen?
Excuse me,
Yes.
sir. It's 2 days only, sir.
2 days. Okay. So, very close, ano? So there must really be something. There must really be something. Although in rare cases, sinasabi natin merong mga like yung mga borderline values, but that's a very rare case na parang ngayon siya kinuha nag-positive, then the following day, it so happen na ang na-capture na will be towards the yung pagwala ng virus, no, kaya siya nag-negative. Pero that is something that has to be ano ba, hindi naman investigated, but then something that must be clarified siguro and verified, and be able to compare, no, kung ano yung, kasi very unlikely yon,
Yes, sir.
kung 2 araw lang yung pagitan.
Kasi ang
Pero
emotional stress kasi sir, sobra, sir, eh.
yeah, sir, yeah, what was the test, sir? What was the test done? It was
Actually, my nephew was is a seaman actually. He just came actually from abroad, and then yung barko nila dumaan dyan sa Manila, so they were actually already, I mean, 5 silang bumaba sa barko. Then directly pumunta sila sa testing center for this test. And then after 2 days, may lumabas na result, and hindi naman siya convinced dahil wala naman siya exposure.
Mm-mm.
So, nagpa-retest siya sa St. Louis, and it was found out negative naman siya.
Sir, but did you find out, was it the same test? Kasi we're talking of at least three possible tests, no, for COVID-19. We have the rapid antibody, we have the
PCR.
antigen swab, and we have the
It's a
RT-PCR
PCR test. It both PCR tests siya.
Both PCR. Okay, so if it's both PCR and with only 2 days difference, then there must really be something. There must really be something to be.
Kasi I heard actually na may mga quota na raw ngayon. Pag more than 10 daw, dapat isa positive daw. Is that true?
Oh, I don't think, sir. Wala naman gano'n. Wala naman akong alam na gano'n nag-exist na policy. I don't know internally, pero I don't think naman. That would be a very unethical thing to do, no?
Exactly.
Hindi naman siguro gano'n. Or it could also be, we can consider it could also be an honest mistake on part of any one of them. Pero still, no? So that must be something na ma-clarify. Sir, were you able, or was the person able to like ask kung bakit ganon, yung may discrepancy dun sa result?
Hindi na nga siya nag-ask kasi medyo stressed na siya at depressed na siya. Ang kanya importante is makita niya yung family nila mismo. So I want actually to complain about this one dahil parang meron ng kumbaga abuse na kumbaga.
Yeah.
PCR test is very costly, right?
Yeah, that could be possible naman, sir, if you really want to seek a clarification. Nothing will prevent you from doing that. And yeah, maybe the laboratory who did the first test, if you are not convinced with the result, they can always naman be asked for a clarification or an explanation, especially na meron pang sumunod na another test na very close to the date, no? Magkasunod lang 2 days after. So if he has time to do that, pwede naman, sir, pwede na. But I assure you, there's no rule. There's no provision in whatever DOH ruling, the one you mentioned about the quota, or there should be a 1 positive for every 10 samples. That's the first time that I've heard that actually. So wala po akong alam na ganun. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sige, sir. Salamat din po. And nalulungkot ako sa
Okay, so we have another good question coming from Miss Dorothy. Sir, can you give a brief discussion how the COVID-19 testing is done inside the lab To give knowledge to some, most especially all of us OFW will undergo the testing pag umuwi kami ng Pilipinas.
Okay. Very timely because just yesterday, DOH released an omnibus guidelines regarding testing. And again, no, while available ang tatlong test na ginagawa, ay still the recommended and the gold standard for COVID testing is the RT-PCR. So the the policy states that every incoming international Filipino workers coming from another country are actually supposed to undergo the PCR test upon arrival. So that is a policy that is being implemented right now, and once then after that you have to undergo the quarantine. But the new directive states that even if, for example, you tested, unfortunately, for example, you tested positive, and you underwent a quarantine for 10 days na lang ngayon, no, for 10 days na lang ang nire-require. And even in the absence of another test, kahit ikaw ay nag-positive dun sa una, even in the absence of another test telling you that is negative, provided that there is a clearance from the doctor, pwede ka nang i-release. No? You are already considered recovered. Unlike before a patient is considered recovered, he has to present at least 2 negative results of RT-PCR. So ngayon, hindi na, binago na siya based on the new WHO protocol. So kaya if you've noticed, if you've seen in some of the news na biglang minsan may mga andaming recoveries, no, because not really because they turned negative with their results, but it's now time based. So it's now based on the number of days that you've completed no, yung quarantine period. So ganun pa din. So 10 days after, and you but if you I hope I'm not mistaken, but if you tested negative, even if you don't complete the 10 days quarantine, you can already go. No, ganun yung protocol na ginawa. Bago lang yun, actually hindi ko pa nga nabasa ng buo, kahapon lang siya lumabas kasi. Pero as far as I know, ganun yung bago na sinusundan ngayon, no? Hindi ka na magtatagal doon sa quarantine facility.
So Sir Ronnie, another question here is, can you give a brief discussion because siguro yung iba hindi aware or familiar kapag na swab test na yung from specimen collection hanggang ma-release ng result. Kasi yung iba nagtatanong, bakit ang tagal-tagal ng result ng laboratory? It takes 48 hours, 3 days before ma-release ang result.
Okay. Right now, our usual procedure here in the Philippines for RT-PCR, the standard is really 3 to 5 days. But there are but there are tests that can be released in a matter of 24 hours. Well, technically, the testing itself will not really take 3 to 5 days. The reason why it's now taking so much time is because of the volume, not really the procedure. So because of the load that being received by the different laboratories, they cannot really cope up releasing it within 24 or 48 hours. But of course there are some laboratories who are parang meron silang special package wherein you can get it within 24 hours, 48 hours, kaya lang iba yung presyo. So it only shows na pwede naman talaga siya within 24 hours. So kaya lang siya nagtatagal is yun nga yung volume na hindi it's not the procedure itself.
Okay, sir. So last question, sir.
May add kasi yung testing capacity din natin, hindi pa naman natin talaga nare-reach yung capacity na ma-handle niya yung lahat yung demand ng mga test natin sa country.
Thank you, sir. So one last question coming from Ms. Shaila Rojas of FDK. Should I be afraid to go to a dental office since most of procedures are done using aerosols generating machines?
Okay, in terms of the dental services, it's been it's been innovated, no? So marami na mga innovations na ginawa ngayon. Although it took some time before they're allowed to open here, no, for the dental clinics, but there are now what you call this, engineering controls. We call it the engineering controls, on a biosafety language, that are being used, no, in the different clinics. So marami na, like may mga barriers, no, na mga design talaga for a dental service. And right now, before you are accepted for a dental service, you will also be required to present a negative COVID test. So hindi naman is now normalizing in the country. Dahil nga syempre hindi lang naman kasi we should always take note that hindi lang naman yung patient ang may possibility mahawa, no? We should also remember that baka kayong patient ang may dala. So it's two-way, no? It's two-way. So while patients are very protective of themselves, of course health workers, dentists, doctors should also be protective of themselves. Kaya two-way yan. While we are using our PPEs, barriers, so ganun din naman, and we really understand the concern of every people. Ganun din kasi yung concern natin, no, as health provider. So nothing really to worry about.
Okay, Sir Ronnie. Thank you so much, sir. So it looks like we covered all of our questions. So just in case we missed your question, so we will attend it by answering through our email, or just in case sa mga nahihiyang magtanong, so you can send it to our PAMET-ERSA's email address or Facebook Messenger using our chat box. We will just post it
There's
there.
just one question gusto ko lang sagutin about the query on the cost of the PCR test na nakita kong huli. Para lang ma-address ko yon, ano. The cost of PCR test, normally, if it is done in a government, like in Red Cross, the range is about 3,500 to 4,000 per test. But for those doing it in the private hospitals, it ranges from about 6,000 to 8,000 per test. No, so medyo expensive talaga. And some would even charge as high as 10,000. And there is now a move to regulate the cost. No? So I don't know what will happen next, but the Department of Health has already forwarded a recommendation to the Office of the President para i-regulate yung cost ng RT-PCR. Pero so far wala pa. So yun, in terms of range, yun lang. Pinakamura would be 3,000 maybe, and pinakamahal could go as high as 10,000. May mga libre din. There are some LGUs, very few of them, who offered the test for free, like some part of Manila and Pasig, if I'm not mistaken. Pero very limited.
Makati as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think Makati meron din. Very limited, hindi talaga. No, may 20,000, hindi naman.
Okay, so salamat po. Maraming salamat, Sir Ronnie.
Sure, thank you very much also. It's really very nice being with you, no, in this morning sa inyo and afternoon sa amin.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gayet. And of course, Sir Ronnie Puno, for the factual and practical answers. To award the certificate of recognition to our guest speaker, let us call once again Sir Arce Fernando.
Thank you, Sir Mata. And of course, before I proceed, can I ask a favor to all of us to open our cam? And I think this is a good opportunity also to give a virtual thunder of applause to our frontliners. Can we do that, please? Can you open our cam and let's all give them a virtual applause. Ayan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all frontliners. No, we are really we are very thankful. Yes, we are very thankful to all frontliners, no, for sacrificing their lives. And imagine the efforts na binibigay nila just to cover all the patients, no. Napakatindi po talaga. I think mas malaki yung ano, what do you call that, the
responsibility, yeah.
The stress, no, na
Yes.
nakuha nila kaysa sa atin na individuals. So with that, let me please allow me to award this certificate of appreciation to our guest speaker for today. PPO or Philippine Professional Organization, Saudi Arabia, present this certificate of appreciation to Mr. Ronaldo E. Puno, RMT MBH, in grateful recognition of his valuable contributions in sharing his professional expertise as technical speaker. Topic: Resiliency during COVID-19 pandemic, lessons learned, and the journey of Filipino healthcare frontliners, held on the 16th of October 2020 at Al Khobar, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia via Zoom. Signed, yours truly, PPO President, Dr. Shaila E. Roas, our Secretary, and of course, our Professional Development Engineer Clint C. Marquez. Again, thank you so much, Sir Ronaldo Puno, all the way from Philippines, no? And take note, he's actually an artist. Makikita niyo po sa mga commercial ng Safeguard, no? So, hindi po siya po 'yon. Yung kung nakikita
Baka
niyo yung
naman,
commercial.
Sir Ronnie, ha?
Yeah,
Baka naman,
yung
Safeguard.
Safeguard. Okay. So, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng umattend today. And of course, ating guest speaker, Sir Ronnie or Ronaldo Puno. And of course, PERSA, as a PAMET-ERSA, so was hosted for today's webinar. And of course, to my fellow PPO-SA Council, thank you and God bless us all. Keep us safe. Sir Florante? Or Sir Boyet? Napapahaba kasi sir sorry. Sir Boyet.
Okay, thank you, Sir RC, for the award, for the recognition certificate for our guest speaker. So an event without some sort of concluding remarks can seem incomplete and unsettling. To formally close the event with a bang, let us call now Engineer Clint Marquez, the President of Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers, INC-ERSA. Sir Clint?
Okay. Thanks to our very energetic moderator, Mr. Florentino C. Mata, the external Vice President of PAMET-ERSA, to our PPO officers, APO members, students, guests, friends, good day po sa ating lahat. Today, we heard many things, how the frontliners, which one of them is the PAMET, who really perform their task even beyond their normal practices. For them to perform without any hesitation, just to assist and contribute in minimizing or stopping the current COVID pandemic. So PAMET, you earned our snappy salute on your unconditional contribution to our current situation. To our professional organization, the host of today's webinar, the PAMET-ERSA, of course, headed by one of our prettiest PPO council member, Pres Amelita B. Estrada. Thank you, Pres Melit, for your great effort and leading this webinar into a successful event. And of course, to our subject matter expert, the PAMET National President, Mr. Ronnie E. Puno, who is presenting to us the resiliency during COVID-19 pandemic, lessons learned, and the journey of Filipino healthcare frontliners. Thank you, Sir Ronnie, for sharing to us all the PAMET experiences, lessons learned, and many tips and advices. I would like also to say thanks to everyone for joining our webinar today. And we are hoping that today's topic will help us in gathering new information and give us additional knowledge of what is the importance of the frontliners these days. I'd like also to grab this opportunity to invite you again on our next webinar, which will be hosted by Philippine Society of Mechanical Engineers of Saudi Arabia, a group of professional and mechanical engineers, under the leadership of one of our good friend, ASEAN engineer, Jonathan E. Parasi, with a very important and interesting topic with the title of Machinery and Equipment Safety, which will also be presented by one of our friend, no other than ASEAN engineer, Dr. Alan Crazier Avellana from PSMP, Saudi Arabia. Therefore, please do not forget to fill up the provided registration link for the next webinar, as you can see in the comment section. Once again, thank you so much, and I hope to see you on our next webinar. And please don't forget to take the post-evaluation, as this will serve to provide any feedback on how we can still improve our webinar, and most of all, what topic we may be able can share to you under PPO Saudi Arabia future webinars. Thank you and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Engineer Glenn, for your closing remark and for announcing our PPO's upcoming webinar. Please mark your calendar to be not left behind of our future events. Now, PPO-ERSA is signing off. See you on our next webinar. Maraming salamat po. Picture taking muna po tayo, Sir RC, right?
Oo, hindi magiging kompleto pag walang picture
paki-open
taking.
yung mga cam natin. Yeah.
Please open your cam po.
Sir, nakaka-host ka. Baka maganda camera mo. Take charge po.
Medyo... Sige
okay?
po.
Maganda ba ang cam mo dyan?
Mag-share din ako.
Sige.
Okay. Ito po, ano po natin?
At 4 na slide yan, Sir Boyet, no?
Sige po. Okay.
Paki-open po yung mga cam natin para makuha lahat.
Okay. So, 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay. Next slide. Next slide. Okay.
Okay, third slide, Sir Boyet. Paki-open po ng mga cam kasi para magandang tingnan. Naka-block eh. Third slide na tayo. Nawala yata si Sir Boyet. Sir Boyet, nasan ka?
Andun siya.
Na-mute ka yata. Okay, na-mute
sorry.
ka.
Okay,
third na tayo, third.
Okay, third na po tayo. Okay, next. Okay, please open your cam po.
Paki-open yung cam po para makita kayo dito.
Okay.
Next, last one.
Last one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, salamat. Maraming salamat po sa ating lahat. Keep up safe and God bless us all. Sana matapos na to, no? Makapahinga naman yung mga frontliners natin. Alam kong sawang-sawa na sila. So, tulungan po natin sila by keeping safe and social distancing pa rin.
Be healthy.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Kailangan yan. Be healthy. Okay, so maraming
Thank you, Sir
salamat
Ronnie.
po. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Sir Ronnie, maraming salamat po ulit. And of course,
Thank
sa
you
ating
rin
mga
po.
visitors all the way from other countries, no? Maraming salamat po. I think
Hello,
Congratulations to
Sir Ronnie.
PAMET-ERSA Press RC.
yes, congratulations of course sa ating
Congratulations,
host
Sir
for today.
Ronnie.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you po sa
Thank you,
inyo.
Sir Ronnie.
PAMET, baka naman.
Baka naman, yung safeguard yan.
Wala ba kami
Safeguard
safeguard dyan?
Parang may nakita akong ano dito, parang may nakita akong safeguard dito.
Oo nga eh.
Nadala natin kayo
Tanaw-tanaw ko.
kapigat.
Safeguard dito. Sir Ronnie, thank you.
Okay po, thank you sa lahat.
Thank you so much, Sir Ronnie.
Comment election later.
Okay. Pahapon po na reminder po sa mga member ng PAMET-ERSA. Mayroon po tayong General Assembly Meeting and Election today at 1 p.m. po. Be there po at send na po namin yung link sa group chat na po natin.
Magkasunod
Sige
lang
po,
pala.
atin
So,
po kami
okay.
dyan.
Congratulations.
Press
Okay po. Walang problema po. At 1 p.m. po.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Congratulations. Good luck sa event mamaya.
Thank you.
Okay. God bless po lahat.
Thank you so much
God
po. More
bless.
power.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye.
Stay
Bye-bye.
healthy.